Welcome. Big update, guys. Big update. So I messaged Nyla Shoke, who is presumably, so it seems, one of the leading researchers, for sure, one of the leading researchers in the Mahabharata war and ancient Dwarka and dating of, specifically dating of when it happened, is what I am finding lots of info from him relating to that I have immediately just like eye-opening about things. I've already mentioned to him that I've been checking out your, so he basically responded. I said, I would most appreciate your consideration of the potentials discussed herein in this video, which is my Earth's undercurrents video. And then I say that actually stemmed from the below bathymetric map and descriptions of ancient Dwarka. And I show him this, and I feel like this, just like physically seeing it, like on the coast of, western coast of India, it's a little anomalous if you know about Dwarka. To a point where I feel like, that's why I just put it, like, here's a picture. And then I said, here's a video about Dwarka that really, if you watch the video, which is a, like, if he clicks this link, he won't even see Dwarka appear in this until right about, still not 6 minutes in. Here we go. As the crust at 6:34, we finally reach Dwarka even being mentioned. Became occupied. As the crust of the earth became occupied with undercurrents, the mantle puncture hole began to emit a current through the crust as the Deccan traps, and the first, like, kind of getting towards Dwarka. And then I just jump in. Ancient Dwarka here, and here's the bathymetric map, so it connects back to there, but it takes literally 6:42. So, which maybe, you know, if someone just clicks this and starts watching it and doesn't have the background of the expanding Earth and like is very and awareness whatsoever to the basis of all of this, like, this is a very short and concise video. It doesn't like elaborate on where I'm coming from. It's just here it is. Here's what I'm thinking, like, as a result of a decade of research, of okay, 8 years and 8 months of research post the initial breakthrough that basically led to the developing of the theory of everything, where I quit my job and have invested all of my life savings and have just been like doing this to my own detriment, where like I woke up this morning, I'm like, I have a genuine pain in my ass. Like, it's like sore, but I don't know if it's just sore. Like, the problem is I have health issues, and so I don't know if it's like just sore. If I didn't have health issues, especially in the region, I'd be like, it's just sore. But because anyway. So, yeah, so he said in response, check out my YouTube channel, which I certainly have not, like, thoroughly to in any way incorporate what he's saying into what I interpret. But I don't think I was even meant to until now, because I didn't have the prerequisite, like, line of reasoning to really, like, be like, aha, this is actually what's going on with this, and this is because blah 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 blah. I wouldn't have been able to say those things until the last few months. So it's almost like I needed the prerequisite knowledge to even account for the data he's pointing out. But I do feel like, okay. So basically, he said, check out my YouTube channel and the entire Dr. No shorts series. And then he says, evidence from around the world for flooding and destruction of Krishna's Dwarka in 5525 BCE. So I'm like, okay. It's a little later than I honestly interpret, but like for sure there's a reason he's saying this, so let's see what the reasoning is. So I went to his channel and I watched all of these, although I ended up hilariously. I've been checking out your shorts series and believe the information you are bringing up helps clear up time frames of processes I discuss. It is hard to explain shortly, but I recently made a video discussing the scope of my research. And then I linked some context to the video, which probably is a good background video. I didn't like really watch it again to make sure it was like the perfect video to link, but I mean, I made it for that purpose pretty much, as like a here's what's going on. I know there's a lot of things going on. It's hard to like put it all in one video, so I have to almost like reiterate at times things of this nature. But then I ended up like blah 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 saying all these things, and then episode 14 of this playlist down here, he's like, if you want to like discuss this, all I ask is you read my books first and then write a critique. I'm like, shit, man. I didn't do that, and you first asked me to watch the shorts. And interestingly, he asked me to watch the shorts, and it's maybe a check of his. I don't know. Like, did you watch my shorts? Because if you watch my shorts, you would know that I said like read my books. So don't like come at me like this. And then I'm like 13 episodes in, the one right before he even mentions that when I'm like, okay, I'm responding. Like I know it's a little early. I'm barely exposed to his work, and to go into detail, certainly his work is beyond Earth. So there's like basically has timings that from a casual first like pass through this. This is purely this the Dr. No Shorts, Dr. No Shorts. This playlist is all Earth geology based analysis. So perfect for Earth expansion and ancient Dwarka related evidence, but it does not he doesn't discuss in here the other aspect of like astronomy based reasoning for why he's also concluding the same date, which is probably really revealing. And I haven't looked at it yet, but I will. But in terms of things that I'm just not aware of, like things that I don't want to speculate too much about, where essentially in short, an interactive nature of the small and the large, where like when we look up, we're really looking like down at the same system at Earth. I don't know if that's true, but it may be the case. Like if there's really, because essentially Earth was attacked by a vortex weapon, but then there's astronomical correlations to this that almost, and then also like other things that I've kind of wondered about, like the age of the sun versus the age of the Earth, a little too similar. If the Earth is like cycling as all sorts of things that are kind of like, and potentials, and nothing like rigidly arrived at, just things I'm like angles I'm just looking at for like a path in to understand better. Okay, so let me just real quickly scroll through this. This one, in short, Black Sea formed around 5600 BC, 5525 BC. So he's suggesting that the formation of the Black Sea is a result of the rising waters that sunk Dwarka. And this is something that I think is really important. Is essentially in your interpretation, Nilish, is that there is no correlation between the like why the water is rising and the sinking of Dwarka. It's just like then the water rises above, but like a fierce vortex arose, blanketing the region with billowing dust, based on the attack on Dwarka by King Sauba. I'm like a total amateur. I don't know anything about the Mahabharata wars. I only know like kernels. Basically, I searched for any information on Dwarka. That's what happened. And then I read the Rig Veda in its entirety, and I've read a couple things otherwise in part, but really it's been a Dwarka focused study. I know almost nothing of Hinduism as a whole and all of this, the totality of what is talked about, but I focused Dwarka, and I like one of the critical things is a fierce let me bring it up. A fierce wind arose, blanketing. I don't want to say vortex. I think it is the area with billowing dust, Dwarka. I think it is vortex in English that I've come across. I don't know what it actually. This. From his excellent Vimana, he threw down a torrent of projectiles. A fierce vortex arose and blanketed the area with billowing dust. This is, first of all, what caused this phi ratio, which maybe I can find a picture of real quick. Let's go animations. This is my initial thing that I did. Whether or not it's true, it's not true anymore, really. I would say it's not true. The particulars of it coming out here and then going down this way. I've arrived at it went this way and over down this way, down to here. So I'm not even sure about the totality of it. It's more just showing that this curvature is this curvature. Like it's able to match up to it because it's correlated to a fierce vortex arising, blanketing the region with billowing dust, so it sends energies especially into the earth low and punctures the mantle right here, which is visible in data as this swirl, because essentially the mantle is punctured. I don't know if it's a mantle. I just say mantle. The material that, like, once the barrier is punctured, it's basically displaced. So this vortex brings space itself in through the mantle, in through the crust, and it passes through enough to get into this like more fluid material that is then displaced by the process underneath the crust. So it comes out, but then it like stays underneath the crust. And then it flows literally in all directions and fills the undersurface of the crust until it has so much pressure that it basically explodes to a new radius. It cracks the boundaries based on where the current's flowing, like it literally based on where the current's flowing though. And then once it like has vented sufficiently, it plugs itself up with this spiral structure here, and just shapes the totality of the Earth as we see it today as a result of the undercurrent that flowed Earth. That's why this Earth's undercurrents video that I linked here is relevant. It's very relevant. I know it's very like out of left field in appearance, and like the expanding Earth. There's so many like things to get caught up on with what I'm talking about, like the dating. Like, for instance, I'm like, I point out to him from that a major component is that this occurred at what geologically is around 650 million years, but in reality was when Dwarka was attacked. Some data appears to depict the real time, which is what what he's looking at, what Randall Carlson is looking at, what people focused on the Younger Dryas are looking at in general. Not to name drop people who aren't looking at things from the angle I'm looking at, because it's pretty much people just aren't, unless they're like me. There's maybe a few people. Like, radiometric dating is valid in relative dating only. So using it at the same time, like not using it, like using it only for sequence, but not for absolute aging. But knowing, like, in this whole, as I've been doing this, I knew, like, okay, here's a real timeline, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's this Earth expansion process timeline that spans back to like 650 million years, but really began at the attack of Dwarka. So there's this like total discrepancy, but one of them shows like the real time, the other shows the supernova of the Earth, like not constant radioactive decay of the Earth, because the Earth expanded and went through this vast change where rapid radioactive decay occurred, painting a picture once the Earth stabilized. And then we looked at the stabilized Earth and said the radioactive decay rate is this, and then therefore it is this old. But the Earth was not always stable. It actually expanded like a reaction from one equilibrium, activation energy, new equilibrium. But because it's a Earth, it was like the reaction process more nuanced, and that's what's cool about it. Like the same process, but with more nuance. Isn't that crazy? Like, yes, so pretty much when reactions occur, maybe they're like that particle, unbeknownst to us, is just on some fractal layer being attacked by a vortex weapon, just systematically. It repeats. I don't know. Every excited electron ever to reach our eyes is sparked by the attack of ancient Dwarka across fractal layers, held in the Akashic records, because all is one. Everything we look at is the same system from a different angle. Even in that sense, I don't know, just spitballing here. Besides the point. Point being, he pointed out 5525 BC is his focus, and the Black Sea. So if we go Black Sea formation, Black Sea deluge hypothesis. So there's this like sudden flow of water into the Black Sea, which is really weird when you think about it. Like, Earth itself supposedly functions on millions of years timescales, and yet the water on it is on this scale. Like, it almost, so that's what I'm getting at, is like this water shows the real time frame, whereas the Earth with radioactive decay, the way we analyze it, like until we correct for unaccounted for variables to like bring it in line, like what I'm trying to do right here to like give a line. So what basically there's a bunch of stuff happening at 5525 BC. I agree. That's what I find really exciting. One of them being the Black Sea is formed. But like I was saying, like a lot of the evidence he shows is like the water is already rising. But the thing is like it wasn't doing that until the Earth was attacked by a vortex weapon. So like it can't really be during the expansion process, basically. It has to be like before it, and then the Earth is attacked by a vortex weapon, which then punctures the innards and causes them to flow and for it to basically expand outward. And one of the results, so I'm trying to think like so here's the Black Sea. Here's the Black Sea. Mind you, I've discussed in depth like the current flows, and one of the things going on is here. It's hard to just quickly elaborate on because a lot there's so, as like I was saying, so many things that get like caught up on, because what I'm about to say is gonna be like, what are you talking about, dude? Shalligrams, let me find a good one, are not fossils but are caused by current flows. So like, I know that might sound ridiculous, that's what I mean, so many things to get caught up on. Let me find a good example to prove that real quick. I mean, they all are, but there's some of, like this one, for instance, is like, what's going on here? But here's the one I want to actually look at for the purpose of what I'm talking about, is how it's imbalanced and like has these lobes outward. And let's say it like is caused by currents, and so a stronger current could produce another lobe and another. Like it could, in essence, depends on the circumstances, but like this type of thing is a thing that happens. Then there's like this one. I don't want to get too caught up on this. Like this one is for sure caused by currents. This is a standard current type of thing. This like snake head, snake body, which is also part of why the Tibetan Plateau is as it is, and the accretions of the Western North America. Here's another like dendrite structures around a rock without any like accompanying like overall structure. Okay, I don't want to sit here pausing. Okay, but the point I'm saying that for is around Tarim Basin region, around this region where there is a shallogram. So like here's a shallogram, chakra with these shallogram features here. They're all over the place, and I've discussed them in depth in my shallogram videos. Like literally here, this is where shallograms originate from, this crown thing right up here. This is a shallogram, this is a shallogram, this is a shallogram. I've talked about this in depth. They're all over the place on large scales. Like we can go over to Hawaii. Let's see, another like shallogram-esque. I don't know if it's quite the same because it has this. I mean, maybe it has chakras here that I'm not noticing. I don't know. I just kind of pictured it like a straight. And then ammonites I found like all over the place, even in the ocean itself here. Spiraling, like in the process of how the ocean formed, based on like when the sequence it formed is ammonite like. But here, essentially my thought is generally off of this region, there's this like repeating shallogram feature of this type of W thing. This W thing that forms because of the undercurrents that were flowing. Like this isn't just like forming by water, like flowing into a region, for instance, like here. Like it's, this region is being shaped, the overall Earth is being shaped by the undercurrents flowing. And like here's the Black Sea here. So this boundary of the Black Sea is closely tied to the overall undercurrents of these magnetic anomalies. That's what caused these physical flows of currents. When the mantle was punctured and it literally just gushed out in all directions under the crust until it fractured the crust by just too much current, and it occupied the space and pressure built up in that layer until it essentially burst the overlaying crust and formed a base substrate of the oceanic crust that also like continues to the same material that created these more complex current flows that were underneath of the crust before the Earth expanded. But one of the aspects is the Himalayas are like vibrationally produced, where there's actual vibrations here like this. And like it curves up like this way and down this way that like vibrate across this region generally, because of the undercurrents that are flowing this way, coupled with the current here coming out here, like running into each other like this. And so then it starts to go this way and flows like, I guess it might have, I've been saying that this is like venting, but I guess maybe it just flows across this barrier and kind of cuts through this barrier and vents out this way. And essentially a boundary is formed here. Maybe even closing off a valve. I've never thought about that. Like maybe it was freely flowing until this valve closed at the formation of Black Sea, 25 BC kind of time frame. But like because these currents are flowing, which were caused by the attack of Dwarka by a vortex weapon, which was the end of the Mahabharatan War, I presume, or thereabouts. I don't even know. Like, that's how little I know about the details outside of Dwarka itself and what I could find on Dwarka itself. Okay, so Black Sea formed 5600 BC. I would say maybe that is like a valve closing. Like there was current flowing this way, it blocked it off. And maybe that's actually closely tied to why the current was more preferentially led than afterwards to flow down through the East African Rift through here instead and go through here. And then it interacted with the current that's coming across this way, all the way from here across here through it, spreading out under here like a flame, and then fanning out in this region, and then it interacts with the current here. I'd never consider that maybe this like shut off this pathway pretty well enough to like deflect it, maybe even tied to some aspect to the east coast of North America, United States region that I haven't considered quite. But the point is the Black Sea 5600. So in short, my interpretation after going through his videos was that the Earth was attacked at 650 million years radiometric dating. At 66 million years radiometric dating, all of the continents broke apart sufficiently so that it could freely expand to a new radius. Up until then, it was building up pressure, like a container building up pressure, but it's still one unit. But then it physically started to fracture until bonds broke, like actual bonds, chemical bonds that are on different fractal scales broke. Animations like this. How there's literally a bond on the Pacific that is the equidistant to the bond, to this bond over here that matches the Papua New Guinea, like missing spaces, and then just it continues. And so there's bonds breaking. Like the Chicxulub crater is not an impact from an extraterrestrial event. There is Nader crater. There's 12 impact craters. I'm hungry. Sorry if you can hear that. There's 12 impact craters. Let me go my steam it. Nader crater, 66 million Cretaceous, approximately same age. Boltish, Shiva crater, somewhere in this. I guess I didn't reorganize them. I really should have. More impacts after these ones are this one, which some of these are suspected, some of them are, but blah blah blah, but there are several of them at the same time frame, and then it's not just impacts happening. Like there's major events that I talk about here going on at the KT boundary that are because the Earth is expanding, and it's basically reaching a breaking point where rapid expansion is able to occur, where the like undercurrents below the crust are fracturing it enough where it starts to break, and then it just can expand, and it does. But that is at 66 million years radiometric dating, and then it's boom, it's like an actual supernova, like building up supernova. So like the supernova time of the Earth expansion process is at 66 million years radiometric dating, and that is what I believe to be what 5525 BC represents. Whether or not like how much time went on from 650 million to 66 million, I don't know. It could be weeks, months, years, thousands of years. It could be up to thousands of years, like under 10,000, but up to thousands. But it may just be pretty short, like rapid. For sure, Dwarka itself sunk rapidly, so that suggests that the process as a whole was going on pretty rapidly, which means it was probably more so. It may even be that it was actually 5525 BC, and like it just was a month that even the other dating like extended, but just not as much. Other dating methods are just like uniformly extended, so it's hard to tell that there's this like thing that happened. This inflection point. So this one is about the Black Sea. Okay, so the Black Sea that's my interpretation of this one. This one was precession of the equinoxes, which I didn't have much to think of for this one. This wasn't like specific data. It's more like introductory. Okay, so then let me find the data. So this is what I mean. If you look at this bathymetric data that I put here, 150 meters up to 25. So like, if this is Dwarka, and maybe my interpretation was that it's literally underwater, like to a degree where this is exposed. All these are exposed, and like they built structures to really make it like a elevated city in the region. Based on the text, I don't know. Sometimes that might be confusing. Like 6 pillars, 4 on the right, 2 on the left, or 4 on the left, 2 on the right. That one might actually be literally a description of the region that they found near modern Dwarka that is considered by S.R. Rao, S.A. Rao, something, S.R. Rao maybe, to have been Dwarka, which is interesting, but it's not Dwarka because it doesn't match the descriptions unless they found like palaces of gold, gems. Like I don't think they did though. From what I've seen as stone structures, I don't know. I would say it's just got to match the description, or else what are we doing? We're just close enough. But so like, if this was Dwarka, then maybe around 100 was minus 100 was sea level. So going back to here, like this is my thoughts. This is the attack on Dwarka. Maybe there was like a general sea level rise because there was water on Earth that was accumulating on the pre-expansion Earth that showed some sort. I don't know though. I don't know enough data behind 20,000 years to really understand. Like, if there's some weird anomaly globally where we just don't find data beyond a certain point and we just kind of write it off by blah 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 blah, and 20,000 years is kind of like when water appears to have shown up, I wouldn't know that, but the data that I have come across does tend to have like a way limited range. When the oceans are like considered to be millions of years, why are we like talking on this scale? It really is confusing, like if you think about it. But like even able to discern. So it may be even back here, even though, like, again, in the same way as time was stretched out by the Earth expansion process, this time may be stretched out to a degree where, like, like this segment is more stable and more like our normal time passing, but then, like, all of this maybe is much more like a reaction process. I'm pretty sure the time frame, this one that he points, this is what I mean though, like it's already expanding, it's already flooding, the water is already gushing out and occupying space and beginning to rise from a what I would say, that's why this looks almost like when things were good, like Utopia. There was a peaceful civilization of gods. People just knew enough as a society to really have overcome the struggle to survive, and instead entered a phase of struggling to understand, where like that's what life was about, because they overcame their other struggles and were able to have just different octave of struggles, and where it's like learning hard shit, like legitimately really studying even like the most, because that's probably what really happened, was just distribution of knowledge became so prolific that people were just no longer relying on one another. So everyone was just freely able to make their own decisions. So like the real selves came out. People weren't faking anymore, because we all just play this game. Like, will you? Like, I need energy. Can you like give me energy kind of game? And just like that's probably not what they were doing. They were more like worried about, like, they made, my thoughts is the complexity of the issue came up when they, without maybe like you not universe, like total agreement, without everyone agreeing, someone probably created a new human. They just literally made humans, and people were like, "Whoa, dude, you know what that's gonna do, right? That's gonna lead to the flood. That's gonna lead, and that's, I think even maybe King Salwa. I really do. Salwa, this person who attacked with a vortex weapon ancient Dwarka, seemingly would have known they were going to cause the earth to expand and flood, and literally cause the flood. Like, it may be that the biblical God of the Bible is that person, and it's like totally different angles of seeing the same person, the same being. The same being is the like biblical God, and then the Hindu king, because like the biblical God is probably not like totally valid, where like an advanced society would be like, whoa, dude, if that biblical God is amongst society, whoa, dude, like, me too, motherfucker, me too, not just you. So this is like fine line. Something of that nature going on. But like that's what is written. Like, they probably understood enough. That's my thoughts, is they actually like understood enough and saw like this collapse of society was happening, that people were literally having sex with the human race that was just created. Like, imagine that we as a human species reach some like peak knowledge, and then we give birth to and like literally become gods, like indistinguishable from gods. Like, if someone were to arrive today and just have like supernatural powers, they would be indistinguishable from gods. So, literally enter a phase in humanity, in the story of humanity, of us, where we become like gods. and realize ourselves to be God. Really, not like realize it. Like it's not like it's not offensive if it's just the truth that we realize. And then like that's what I mean though. Like we all are God, and like that's why it's like this huge. It takes us all. So then when the vortex weapon attacks the planet, like that knowledge was lost. It's just gonna be sustained. So they like tried to sustain it by like doing things, making depictions, like telling stories of things that happen. But people, it's so like they knew that's how it goes. This is like our choice. We want to live and forget, like, and really be individuals again, and not like the one and only all, where we're really maybe too. It's probably hard to be like that because we're really in each other's business. Because, well, you are me, dude. What's this line you're drawing? This boundary between you and me when you are me? I'm looking. I don't give a shit. I'm looking. Holy shit. I can't believe you did that, other me. Like I look into the Akashic records every moment, every thought. That's what I think. And that God of the Bible, have that. Imagine a society able to look at that being's every thought, like they just came out of birth unintended. A lot of fucked up thoughts, probably. Like that reminds me of like Jesus cursing the fig tree. Okay, so like these are pulses, I would say for sure, of the process. Like certain phases, like there's the Permian, not just the 66 million, but also I've found several instances of the Siberian traps. So the Siberian traps, 252 million years, was simultaneous to like major super volcanoes. I think here, even, I think maybe even here, but maybe here, I can't remember. 252, like that time frame, a lot of stuff was happening, not just the Siberian traps. And that's because like as the earth filled, the pressure filled, and maybe like a hemisphere filled, like as the northern hemispheres filled, that maybe led to some, I don't know. I don't want to, that's probably not true. That's why the 252 million years marker. But my point is, it doesn't matter. The point is, this is probably the 66 million year radiometric dating marker. This is probably another one that may be the Permian 252, but it maybe even is like 100, 120. I know there's a lot of like stuff picking up then, and maybe this is like 252. Like maybe this is the like vortex weapon attack, but again, like the time is not necessarily actually this way. It may be much more truncated. But where this is very accurate, but this is maybe just squeezed shut over top like the same time frame to a degree. I'm not sure. It's hard to say without having something as like a pivot, like a hinge reference point to really pin down when matches what. So that's the Caribbean. This is coral reef growth though, where at around this time frame. So maybe this is generally, although honestly the mere fact that there's coral reef growth at all here is probably enough evidence that the vortex weapon attack was beforehand. Um, throughout history. I don't know. Let's say throughout history. Da-da-da. Like, it may be that we just kind of look at the last 20,000 years or so and say, just, okay, let's see. Sea level changes have occurred throughout Earth history. The magnitudes and timing of sea level changes are extremely variable. They provide considerable insight into tectonic and... Okay, I don't want to sit here reading. 20,000... Okay, here we go. Why are you saying 20,000 again? Here we go. About 20,000 years ago, great ice sheets covered northern North America and Europe. This was the ancient ocean of Earth. The truth is, an ocean was in those regions, and the Earth had yet to expand. And then the Earth was attacked by a vortex weapon. Like, there may have been some glacier, or not glacier, yeah, glaciers, but not, like, it was an ocean. Since then, there has been a sea level rise of about, yeah. So this is when the Earth was attacked by a vortex weapon, according to dating. 20,000. I'm not saying it's 20,000 years ago, according to dating, though. Like, that's at least giving us some degree of hinge, so we can say 650 million years correlates with 20,000. And then probably 11, maybe 11,000 correlates with this one. Maybe. And then here. What was I just saying? Attacked by a vortex weapon. 11,000 probably correlates with the Permian extinction. Crazy. It, or maybe like this time was stable. Time millions of years. Sea level. Greenland ice sheet, Antarctic ice sheet. See, the long-term oxygen isotope record reveals rapid growth of the Antarctic and Greenland ice sheets as Earth's climate cooled. So this actually correlates the two. Like, this is happening while the Earth expansion process, the supernova event, boom, continents break apart. The ocean begins to get filled in with actual crust that then fills space that the water can then drain into. And as it drains, the process just like is reaching a new equilibrium. Heat exchange happens, the earth cools, and then begins to form these ice sheets after 60. This is when the explosion happens. So like after, and I'm finding this kind of time frame, 50, 40, with like Baja BC related data a lot, which is really irrelevant, but too much to get into. Just basically that there's materials down here relating to that. Papua New Guinea was here even, and the other islands and the Philippines up here that literally had the currents flow into this region, take crust and displace it up to this region. So it's up here, Baja BC stuff, in this time frame, and then it really starts to seize around 40. Like, I think it's pretty much stops at around 40. So that would make sense that there would be this like cooling event going on here, cooling event going on here. I'm not sure why Antarctic and then Greenland exactly. But I'm sure there's something revealing to that. D is what? Long-term sea level change was low around this time. This is when the ocean just was starting to form, to open. So the water was low, and then it reached a peak really high. What? I don't understand. Why does it say low? Present day is very low. I don't know what I'm looking at, I guess. This must be some oxygen related. I was thinking it was like taking the oxygen and then turning it into the water depth still based on it somehow, but I guess not. Okay, before I go researching, let's go through some more here. This one's about the Great Barrier Reef. So again, this bar is going up. Like, this is the depth. The depth is going up before 6, 7, 1,000 years. So this is where he's saying around 5525 BC. So like the depth of the water's already elevating substantially. It's pretty much reaching the end. And I would say like aspects of where it kind of slows down, where basically 5525 BC, it really is only going up another 10 to 15 meters from that point to present. So for out of 100 and something meters. So it's kind of reaching the end, and the reason it slows down, I think, is because the Earth expands. So like, it's as it's expanding, the water's filling in the ocean level, but then it physically breaks apart, so that suddenly the ocean that was a smaller reservoir begins to grow, and it just fills the space. And it maybe is what pushed the continents apart to a degree, by there just being water like occupying the space between to push them apart to a degree. so that it didn't like drastically drop, although there is some evidence of things of that nature where there is like a drop and then an increase. But he points out the Philippines. I found it real interesting. The Philippines, of all places, really like central to stuff I've been talking about with that animation type of stuff. Philippines here, Juan de Fuca plate, that aspect of it, like it got moved pretty far. So for it to have like dropped, or it shows sea level drop, so for it to show a sudden sea level drop is really interesting. Okay, Holocene. So again, basically, again, this is just another evidence towards that. This one I found real interesting. So this is what I mean. Like, this region that is historically called the Ice Shield is not an ice shield. What it actually is the ancient ocean where Atlantis was, which is Flemish Cap. So what did he say? I'm trying to remember. Pretty much this land was exposed for a time. There was a tsunami here. This I found interesting because this is the snake arm here of Norway and Sweden. It wraps off of the cursed magnetic anomaly here in this region. Seemingly with the center of this thing, I believe is where I was saying in the past. With two arms, one this way with the snake head here, and another arm this way with the Black Sea here. So like here's the lower lip, the upper, going back this way with this like shoulder blade thing towards this like nucleus that then has another arm off this way. Which then a current flowed this way, generally speaking, underneath this surface, and led to this appearance, but then like it caused tsunamis here. That's what he's showing. So there's tsunamis here at that time frame, 5500 BC. So it does seem like it's pretty much just like filling the space, and then it reaches some critical point of like pressure buildup that it just like pushes out the boundary again to a new level that it can then the current can then flow into again, and then it stabilizes because that's all it needed to grow to stabilize, I guess. Let me see if there's any other. Put it as 6200 BC there. I'm not sure. There must be two different tsunamis. Just pretty much showing that there's like action here. So that concept that there's this undercurrent that ultimately leads to literally the structure of the region. Flowing in this way, spiraling this way here. So it comes in this way and spirals. And maybe it branches off like a secondary, like it runs this way and branches around as it spirals. So this main spiral has a secondary current off it this way. And then instead of going into it, a tertiary current going back this way kind of looking thing. I don't know. Maybe. And in so doing, it like pushes this boundary, causes a tsunami here, causes other tsunamis he talks about. And then also the Earth starts to expand rapidly, so this region just changes in terms of the glaciation, like falling back like it was all the way up here where the ocean limit was. This is the ocean limit. The ancient ocean reached to this boundary, I'm pretty sure. I'd go so far as to say that's what's actually what this is. And then an undercurrent flowed under all of the crust, including the oceanic crust at the time, and lifted that too into this region, the Canadian Shield. And as it did that, this undercurrent exchanged heat with the water, so it causes like a cycling of the water, boiling, and really the water grinded into the land, making it look like glaciers were really what was doing it. And then simultaneously, it cooled the structure enough to form a support structure under North America that I've talked about, like in the Earth's undercurrents. This was real interesting. So I've recently, like 2 or 3 videos ago, 4 or 5, I don't know. Carolina Bays. This one, the Carolina Bays. That one. I talked about basically a spiral, like as this heat exchange occurs, it causes the current to flow above on the surface, but that current is seemingly somewhat like just flowing in a like spiral here that then breaks off into a secondary spiral. I forget which way I feel like it was spiraling, if it was this way and then this way. I think this one must have gone this way to have like basically produced the Carolina Bays over here. But there's as I talked about in that video, but there's a spiral going on here. Let me show a video real quick to kind of reference point it.
On faster moving Pohoyoi flows,
Spiral one way, spiral the other way. Where they basically spawn currents off the side that are like gears. And so there was a gear turning here of the water current flowing that was really like carving into the surface of the earth. Another one here, or at least pushing down, I don't know if it was carving, pushing down, applying especially pressure in like specific ways to like reshape the outcome. Maybe just held it down. It may just be that it applied a pressure, like kind of like leaning on an area, and then the current flowed, and it more so was caused to flow around this region that was held down by the pressure. I don't know, something of that nature, where like this was able to like lift up a bit by the undercurrents relatively, I don't know. But so there's a current flowing here, and then there's a current flowing here in an ammonite-like way that's spiraling. So when I saw this, it's pretty much like the water comes up. I'm not sure. It's because it runs into this boundary. Kind of like how that lava flow is running into resistance and then spiraling off of the resistance. And this one's running into resistance and spiraling off of resistance. So maybe this one is running into this resistance, generally speaking, and spiraling here. And then down here, there's this resistance spiraling off of that. Which would mean this is probably spiraling this way. Yeah, counterclockwise. This one, I guess clockwise. It only makes sense. This one's going clockwise. This one's going counterclockwise. Although Carolina Bays are kind of more like they might be coming from like a spiral out. Oh yeah, that's right, that's right. I kind of physically looked at it and arrived at that it looks like it kind of spirals out here. So it must spiral clockwise. So maybe it spirals clockwise, which is part of why this is here, because it runs into this, and the current was just kind of sent down this way, vented through this channel, carved this out pretty much. Went through here even. Oh yeah, I don't want to get stuck on the Carolina Bays. 14,000 years. So, like, for sure this is when the Earth is expanding, although, yeah, this is when the Earth is expanding. And then it begins to lose energy because it expanded, and the water, basically the water that was only able to be on the surface area of X of the continental shelf now has a lot more surface area to occupy space, so the depth just is lower, and the preferential location is at the ocean depth, so it basically just drained away the water. And here we are. And it probably drained this way, and maybe back through this way, maybe a bit this way, just out. Definitely drained this way. It almost looks like a swastika, part of a swastika right there. Like this. Cross this way even. I mean, it's an important symbol. It's certainly not just the Nazi symbol. It's ridiculous. It's honestly propaganda to make it a Nazi symbol, because it's not. That'd be like if I took everything you did in your life and said it was mine, and then everyone just agreed. Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't know why there would be. I guess a spiral. Maybe here too. That didn't get as much of a shape going on, so it just. I don't know. This river here does kind of cross generally to this location. If it's spiraling this way, based on the fact that the arms go behind it, so it can't be spiraling where the arms would be like in front of its spiral, like this way. It's gotta be spiraling, or, yeah, it's gotta be spiraling this way where the arms are behind. If there's like something of that nature going on. Also, this does look very closely in line with here. This location cuts across here, goes directly across Yellowstone, right here. Which has a, like, kind of field around it, but then this current came all the way from basically here across when it was here. Like, this is the imprint of the flowing current that went this way across, ran into resistance. It went this way across, ran into this resistance. In this general region, I think here I drew it in the past to like around here. Ran into the resistance though. And then continued through. Continued through though to here. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some relationship to this, like, weird thing that kind of seemingly, like, this is going this way. Or, that was my mouse, I swear. It wasn't my hand. This way. This way. Straight line, pretty much. And then this one cuts across it. Like, hello, goodbye. Boop. A little odd. But the fact that it points back to here is also, it's real interesting. It's almost like a boundary. I think that's generally the data. Rate of sea level fall. So this was real interesting. That's right. Generally the data. New England, Great Lakes covered a nice weight of kilometers thick ice sheet pressed on region. Some regions popped up, some didn't when the ice melted. Depending on where pressure was being applied. Probably. Some kind of effect transitioning from ocean to land, like a turtle popping up of land looks like a hill or backside of a turtle. I found that interesting. You pointed that out, the turtle aspect, because of the turtle right here. This turtle and the relationship to the vortex weapon that caused it, as I talk about in all of my Gurnar videos. But, like, as I said, it was an ocean. It was an ocean. And then it drained all its water because to a degree. Seemingly around this time frame. I'm not sure this. But in essence, the water there was water on Maine. It drained away, and now it's basically returned to this level where it is today. So there's water on Maine, which is up here. I'm not even sure exactly which region is Maine. I knew it wasn't the hull of it. Just I'm sure the hull of this is underwater, generally speaking. Maybe down to like here then? Maybe like this boundary. Generally, or here. Generally speaking, an ocean there. That then the water receded because a new ocean floor at a lower elevation was formed, and so the water had somewhere to retreat to, so it did. So it just cascaded down into the oceans until the water was did this, and then that's my take. Okay. Kochi tunnels in Vietnam. What did I write down? Rapid Holocene flooding. Here's the flooding. Again, though, 120 minus 120, and then like a increase that may or may not have been like when the Earth had first transitioned to being the Earth. I know. And we were living on it in this phase peacefully, maybe unclear. Maybe this was relatively peaceful until the Mahabharata War, at which point the Earth started to expand. So it may be like this is when it happened in this dating time frame. Not actually this time frame, though, necessarily, because we really are not absolutely unequivocally. Like it could just be a uniform increase. Galaxy rotation curve, like dark matter, is interpreted to exist because of galaxy rotation curves that are kind of just like flat lines like this. But the thing is in most instances, when we look at an object, they're not composed of like literally really dense, massive objects relative to atoms. So like as a system gets more massive, it begins to distort light that passes it, and like based on its mass and distance of separation. So basically, at some point, something can become so massive that it literally disappears from view because it's distorting all visible light back to it and not reaching us, and so we don't see it. So when we look at a location like a galaxy, we're like, oh, there's a black hole here. And then we try to zoom in on it with like all our techniques, but we never account for the potential that there's literally a hidden space by the bending of light of the mass of this system, that when we look at a galaxy rotation curve like this, we assume literally across its distance, the distance is identical. This is equal to the same, like if I took a roller over top this galaxy, I could just like interpret an inch to be a certain distance that like it like scientifically is deduced to be here. And then I would just extrapolate across and that's it. But like at no point do we ever consider that in galaxies there's a hidden distance at the center. So if you imagine a like star or solar system planet rotation curve. Yeah, let's see it. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Close to the system, far from the system. So the further from the system, the more it becomes just a flat line. That's my point. So when we look at a galaxy rotation curve, the further from the distance, I know it's also going the other way, which is a little odd. I don't know what to make of that. I have yet to actually provide an answer for that aspect of it, because people who see this might actually be like open enough to consider it and have that question. I'll be like, I don't actually know. Although maybe that itself right there, is this a galaxy? This might be the solar system. What is this? Milky Way galaxy rotation curve. So it even has a up, down, and then generally just goes across with some vibrations, which I would say that's pretty comparable to the solar system when I'm on this. But like, this is what people expect. This is what we get, at least in this graph. There's certainly more data than this at this point. Point being, there's hidden distance, and I've already forgotten why I was talking about that, though. Something to do with this. Oh, yeah. There may be a hidden time, or, like, fake time, the opposite, where it hides actual distance, and in this case, it produces pseudo, like, didn't actually happen time. It's possible. Like the geologically, it did that for certain. Whether or not it did that in this angle of analysis, so that it's not, I want to call it the quite geologically. I know it's still geologically, but I mean like when we're using, I guess like argon, potassium, like certain dating methods that yield millions of years, and then other dating methods don't.
Get the consistency always from about 20,000 to our times, like here. That's the x-axis.
But in these ones, they probably do have a, I don't know why. Okay, now I'm done talking. I'll just hit play. Even though I was never playing any of it. Pardon me. Yeah. So again, though, like, this is probably, I don't know exactly when, but let's see if I can find data. What did I write? I wrote this down. 125 meters at 1830. Oh, yeah. So there is data somewhere. Here it is. Like, it's possible that this is the time frame of ancient civilization, according to what we have dated things to be. Whether or not that, again, whether or not that's actually the actual time, still unclear. Okay, so this is in eastern India. Okay, let's find some data. Present, back to 14,000 years. Western, over here, Western, Northwest Australia. And this is or date back to 140,000. That's right, 104, not 14,000. What did I didn't know what to make of this. This is like what this data is from. I don't know. I wonder if it's, I'm just thinking, like, what if it's like a mirror? This one, like this type of paper, I would need to look at more because of the range of dates to really try to like understand how the data like fits into my line of reasoning. Because pretty much what I've claimed is Earth was attacked by a vortex weapon, but then that was after Earth was moved to when essentially the gods that gave birth to humans were from Mars, and they were like us right now, and they fucked that planet up, and they moved to Earth as it became the new Earth, and Venus will do the same, and it will do so by the supernova of planet Mercury, which is what occurred for them. That's my interpretation. And that generally was around 30,000 years probably in that time frame. So anything before then with ocean record is a little anomalous. I would say highly anomalous. Highly anomalous for the things I'm saying, that there even is any like basis for data of this way. I'll have to check it out. Let me just write that down. Okay. Data back to 140,000 years. Barrow Island. Aboriginal artifacts. Okay, I just wrote this. 4,000 year. I just wrote the name. And then he zooms in on present because, I mean, this to me though, like this is clearly the Earth is already expanding, the water is already flowing. Like the sea level rise is not just like happening by its own. It is because a vortex weapon attack was used on the Earth. But this is a common thing where it reaches a like max and then kind of falls back to a equilibrium across time. Equilibrium. Generally, it reaches a equilibrium from change at around 4000 BC.
With the
These places show, I found this really, really interesting, that these places, Dolavera and Lothal, which are in the region of the storm, so like they really shouldn't have like ancient civilizations there because they're like maybe up here, but the closer we get to the actual Deccan traps, there should not be any civilization that lived on top of the Deccan traps at the time of ancient Dwarka. It shouldn't be. So this is, I'm not sure if this is actually Deccan traps, but it doesn't matter because these both show up on the record around this time frame of after the Earth stopped expanding. Around this time frame, there's like the floods, recession into the ocean occurs, and it's still like 3 meters above sea level at the time, so it was a little higher to a point where this could be a port, this could be a port, and then not anymore. So that's interesting. So even the turtle arose out of the water in a way. The way it vibrates like it's stabilizing around an equilibrium. I mean, that might just be their best guess, but I find it interesting regardless.
This particular cave.
Okay. Tsunamis in the time frame of 52 or 5525 BC. Tsunamis in this region in Indonesia that really started around 75,000 years ago, or 7,500 years ago, and then had a wave of several of them. This is why I feel like one of the this is another, I guess. This is a little curious to me. Like, why is this span so large? Dated tsunami that spanned 2,000 years. Like, maybe they're saying it's just here. I don't know. It's very odd, but it sure looks to me like they're putting it over 2,000. Maybe they're just showing the shape they believe it to have traveled. It's just very odd. It can't be actually spanning that time. It's probably more like these dots only. But the point is, these start around 7,500 years, and if we consider that the Earth expansion caused a current to flow, I gotta stop here, that then went this way, down through here, along the coastline, and created a wave. So physically created an arc by traveling down this path and creating an arc in front of it. And then it stopped. And then tsunamis were kicked off. Maybe that's my thoughts are like it stopped, but like propagation of energies continued to ripple through. And that was seen as tsunamis that specifically were in the time frame of this time frame, meaning after the Earth had expanded to its rapid expansion phase, because this thing seems to be like when these stop moving, then like the material starts to fill in the newer oceanic crust. Map age. All of the newer, like anything through yellow, pretty much red, orange, lighter, earlier yellow. Like all of this is new. Most of this is new after the rapid expansion, 65 million years radiometric dating, which was 5525 BC-ish. So after this, okay, so I'm on 11, I guess. So there's that. Let's see real quick. This was focused on the Mahabharata War. Actually, what? Did I watch this one? I might have listened more to this one and not because I don't, and just saw it didn't have data and not really looked at it.
Not
Gujarat, some stuff going on here. I gotta stop here. I gotta go. I'll be back. See y'all later. Thanks for hanging out. But that's my point. Real quick though. Real quick. that's my point, is that, like, this can be applied to what I've been saying at 5525 being 66-ish million years radiometric dating, and therefore it's after the attack on Dwarka. Although it may be that, like, the time is truncated, so it really was in that time frame, and, like, he's, like, actually then, and the 36 years appears much longer, but then I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say without enough data points and just considering it from that angle, because people just aren't really considering it from this angle. So because I'm, like, the only one doing it, like, comparing the Chicxulub type of stuff to this. Alright, I gotta go. Peace out.